I was grinding dried lavender when I saw the streak of purple fire cut across the twilight sky. Living this far from civilization, you learn to notice things that don't belong. Meteors don't move sideways, don't correct their trajectory mid-flight, and definitely don't land with surgical precision in the exact center of your medicinal herb garden. The impact was silent. No explosion, just displaced air and the smell of scorched earth mixed with copper and ozone. I grabbed my walking stick and moved through rows of chamomile toward the craft embedded among my ghost orchids. 3 years of cultivation destroyed in seconds. The ship was smaller than expected, its surface absorbing light rather than reflecting it. A seam appeared, and she stumbled out, collapsing onto scorched earth. She looked almost human. Almost. Her skin had an iridescent quality, eyes too large and dark, and a silver device on her temple, with pulsing nodes that seemed to grow from her skull. Blood, red but too thin, streamed from her shoulder. "Please," she said in perfect English, "don't report this. They'll kill me if they find me." I should have called someone. Instead, I found myself saying, "Can you walk?" I guided her into my converted barn, the home I'd chosen after Emily died, where I could be alone with plants that couldn't hurt me. And here I was, harboring an extraterrestrial fugitive. She directed me to retrieve a medical synthesizer from her ship. The device hummed over her wound, closing it in real time like stop-motion plant growth. Beautiful and terrifying. "Thank you," she said when finished. "My name is Lyra. I'm a xenobiologist from the Gathering, and I've been studying your species for 6 months. Specifically studying you, Nathan Cole. Age 42, widower, former botanist in isolation. You haven't had meaningful human contact in 417 days. The specificity chilled me. How long have you been watching me?" "Since I arrived. You were selected because of your isolation, expertise, and psychological profile. We needed someone who wouldn't be missed, who distrusted authority, who possessed valuable knowledge for our assessment." "Assessment of what?" "Of whether your species is compatible with controlled integration into the Gathering. We're refugees, Nathan. 17 species fleeing dying worlds. Earth is a candidate, but we need to verify compatibility first. And if we're not compatible, you're left alone. But if compatible, we propose a merger. Your resources, our technology, shared governance." It sounded too reasonable. "What's the catch?" She touched her temple device. "This neural interface connects me to the Gathering's collective consciousness. It also allows temporary links with subjects I'm studying. To understand them completely, verify integration protocols would be effective." My throat went dry. "You've been inside my head?" "Only during sleep. Light surface scans. Standard research protocol. You've been mining my thoughts like data." I backed away, hands shaking. "I've been trying to understand you. Your species is contradictory violent, but compassionate, tribal, but yearning for connection. We need to know if that paradox can coexist with 17 species who've suppressed contradictions for survival." I should have thrown her out. Instead, "What have you learned about me?" "That you blame yourself for your wife's death. That you process grief through cultivation. That you've isolated not to escape people, but to escape guilt for surviving when she didn't. And despite everything, you're still searching for a reason to reconnect. Every private pain laid bare. Get out. My ship needs parts I can't synthesize. My rescue team arrives in 30 days. Until then, I have nowhere else." "That's not my problem." She moved toward the door, then stopped. "But I should tell you something I learned during my scans. Your son is alive." The world stopped. "That's impossible. Lucas died with Emily. Car accident." I identified both bodies. You identified a boy matching his description. No DNA testing, because you couldn't bear to wait. You needed to bury your family and disappear. She projected a hologram showing a boy in a hospital bed, tubes and wires everywhere. This is Lucas Cole, age 13, living in a Seattle foster facility as Lucas Bennett. He survived with severe injuries, traumatic brain damage, persistent vegetative state for 4 years. The hologram showed my son, alive, trapped. Can your technology help him? No, but gathering technology can. The Kryn specialize in consciousness repair. What your medicine considers permanent, they consider repairable. I understood immediately. You want to trade? I propose in exchange. You help me complete my mission. I arrange Lucas's treatment. Your mission to assess whether humanity can be controlled, to determine compatibility. The neural interface doesn't control Nathan. It connects, allows understanding, consensus building, conflict resolution. The gathering operates on collective decision-making. We integrate willing participants, and the unwilling are left alone, but don't receive the benefits. Technology, medicine, resources, elegant coercion. What do you need from me? 30 days of cooperation. Allow deeper neural scans. Map your responses to integration scenarios. At the end, I'll have data for my recommendation, and you'll have transport authorization for Lucas to a Kryn medical station. And if your data shows we're not compatible, the gathering moves on, and Lucas still receives treatment. Either way, he benefits. I looked at the hologram again. My son, frozen in time. When do we start? We already have. I've been recording this conversation, mapping your responses. You agreed to harbor an alien, hide me from authorities, risk everything for someone you met 20 minutes ago. Valuable data about human protective instincts. Everything's been a test. Everything's been research. But research can have complications that alter the researcher as much as the subject. She pulled out another device. This is a neural bridge. Temporary two-way connection. You'd experience my thoughts. I'd experience yours. Complete transparency. Why would I agree? Because you'd see my true intentions, actual mission parameters, everything I'm authorized or forbidden to do. Complete honesty through direct neural access. No lies, no deception. I took the bridge. It was warm, like living metal. How does it work? Place it on your temple. The connection establishes automatically. Warning, it's intense. You'll experience my memories as your own, feel my emotions as yours. I placed it. The world exploded into double consciousness. I was Nathan in my barn, and Lyra orbiting a dying world watching continents burn. I felt my grief for Emily and Lucas, and her grief for 17 billion souls facing extinction. I remembered choosing isolation, and remembered being chosen for this mission because my profile matched requirements. Intelligent, isolated, desperate enough to cooperate, but ethical enough to provide valuable data. And I saw her real mission orders. Subject assessment through escalating integration protocols. Establish baseline, introduce controlled scenarios, measure resistance thresholds. Primary objective, determine if human consciousness can be modified to accept gathering integration without consent. Secondary objective, if modification possible, establish protocols for large-scale implementation. Without consent, large-scale implementation, I ripped the bridge off. You're not assessing compatibility. You're figuring out how to break us. She didn't deny it. The gathering tried peaceful first contact with 47 species. 32 rejected integration. 15 accepted. 11 later rebelled when they understood what integration meant. Billions died. The gathering learned that consent based on incomplete understanding isn't true consent. So you skip consent entirely. No, I'm determining if consent could be facilitated. If minds could be gently guided towards seeing benefits without losing autonomy. Finding the threshold where influence becomes control. I felt sick. And Lucas? Is he even alive? He's alive. The hologram was real. The treatment offer is real. She met my eyes. Nathan, I'm not a monster. I'm a scientist facing an impossible problem. My people are dying. We need Earth. But we also need to preserve what makes you human. I'm trying to thread an impossible needle by finding the best way to manipulate us. By finding if ethical integration is possible at all. Because we're not the only ones looking for worlds. The Devourers are coming, 3 centuries behind us. They don't negotiate. They consume everything. When they arrive, Earth needs allies. The Gathering can be those allies, but only if we're already integrated. Too much. Aliens, mind control, other alien threats. I need time. We have 30 days until my rescue team arrives. They'll conduct their own assessment with far less gentle methods. Every day you spend deciding is a day Lucas spends trapped. She left me with that. By dawn, I'd made my decision. I'll cooperate, I told her, but on one condition. You teach me how the neural interface works. Everything. If I'm your test subject, I want to understand exactly what's happening to my mind. She studied me. That's not standard procedure. Neither is any of this. We're past standard procedure. Something shifted in her expression. All right, I'll teach you. But the more you understand, the more you'll see the ethical compromises inherent in my mission. Good, because I have a theory. Someone conflicted enough to show me her real orders isn't fully committed to those orders. And someone not fully committed might be open to alternative solutions. Her temple nodes pulsed rapidly. What kind of alternatives? The kind where we both get what we need without compromising what we are. But first, teach me everything. Over the next week, Lyra transformed my barn into an alien laboratory. She showed me how the interface created quantum entanglement between neurons, making certain thought pathways more attractive, logical, emotionally satisfying. It's like water flowing downhill, she explained. We don't force the flow. We reshape the landscape so our desired path becomes the path of least resistance. But you're still changing the landscape. That's manipulation, yes, but so is every advertisement, political speech, persuasive conversation. The only difference is efficiency and precision. I studied the technology for hours, learning its capabilities and limitations. The interface required proximity and time to map neural architecture. And critically, it created detectable patterns that could be measured. What happens if someone knows they're being influenced? I asked. Effectiveness drops dramatically. Conscious resistance creates interference. Like tuning a radio while someone constantly changes the frequency. So informed consent isn't just ethical, it's technically necessary for reliable results. She paused. That's accurate. Without willing cooperation, the interface becomes unpredictable. You might get compliance or psychological breakdown, cognitive dissonance, rebellion. Then your mission parameters are flawed. You can't determine compatibility by studying unwitting subjects. You need willing participants who understand exactly what they're agreeing to. The gathering's leadership disagrees, or they're afraid transparency would reveal integration requires more compromise from them than they're willing to make. I watched her process this, nodes pulsing in complex patterns. What are you suggesting? A different experiment, where I'm fully informed, can feel the influence happening and consciously choose whether to accept or resist. Real data about real compatibility, not just manipulation effectiveness. That contradicts my mission orders. But does it contradict your actual research goals? You want real answers, not convenient ones. I'm offering genuine informed cooperation. She was silent. Finally, 15 years ago, I was part of integration ceremony with the Koros. They were told it would be voluntary, that they'd maintain cultural identity. Within 5 years, their culture was erased. Not through force, but through constant pressure of gathering consensus. I documented it, Told myself it was for the greater good. But you didn't believe it. This mission was supposed to give me answers. Instead, I'm finding evidence that gathering methods are fundamentally assimilationist. Then help me prove there's a better way. We have 30 days. We can generate real data about genuine compatibility, show the gathering that informed consent produces better stability than manipulation, save Lucas and maybe prevent Earth from becoming another Koros. What you're proposing is fraud. We'd be conducting better research and presenting results alongside original methodology. Comparative analysis, not fraud. Her nodes pulsed rapidly. If they discover protocol deviation, they'll classify Earth as high resistance and authorize military integration. What's the optimal outcome? She understood. I complete my official mission, present compatible data, return with rescue team. No one knows about secondary research. That's not optimal for me. What's the scenario where Lucas gets treatment even if secondary research is discovered? She manipulated displays, running probabilities. 1. If we present secondary research as additional volunteer data, official assessment of unwitting subject, plus that same subject volunteered for informed consent testing. 2 parallel datasets, both valid. Would that work? Only if you initiated secondary research. If it's my idea, I'm guilty of protocol deviation. If it's yours that I documented, I'm guilty of poor judgment, but not insubordination. So we falsify the timeline. Make it look like I discovered your research, understood what you were doing, demanded to participate before I'd cooperate further. Yes, but Nathan, that means you'd take responsibility. The gathering might view you as high risk. They might decide Lucas's treatment isn't worth keeping you alive. Or they might decide I'm exactly the kind of informed, cooperative human they should want Earth to produce. Someone who engages rationally, asks good questions, volunteers for research because they understand stakes. You're gambling that. Gathering leadership is more reasonable than my experience suggests. I'm playing for my son's life. Large gambles are all I have. We spent 72 hours restructuring documentation, creating a narrative where I discovered her scans on day 5, confronted her, negotiated informed consent testing as cooperation condition, falsifying timestamps, rewriting logs, constructing events that made me instigator and her reluctant documenter. The most complex fraud I'd ever committed. Also the most honest thing I'd done in years. The rescue ship arrived on schedule, larger and more imposing. 6 figures emerged, 5 with interface bands, 1 without. That one approached directly. Nathan Cole. I am Executor Sarth, gathering security oversight. You're harboring research agent Lyra and have material knowledge of classified protocols. Serious security breach. I prepared for this. I'm also a volunteer research participant who insisted on informed consent testing as cooperation condition. Would you like to see the comparative data? That stopped him. Explain. I discovered Agent Lyra conducting passive scans 5 days in. Confronted her about ethics of unwitting assessment. Refused further cooperation unless she conducted parallel research with my full informed consent. She reluctantly agreed. The results are illuminating. You claim you demanded this testing. I claim I'm a scientist who understands comparative methodology value. Agent Lyra conducted important compatibility research. I insisted compatibility should be measured in subjects who understand integration, not just subjects studied without knowledge. She documented both approaches. The data speaks for itself. Show me. We spent 6 hours presenting our research. Lyra displayed official assessment first. My baseline patterns, responses to passive influence, psychological profile from covert observation. Subject exhibits standard human resistance, she explained clinically. Elevated individuality markers, strong autonomy attachment, moderate xenophobic tendencies tempered by curiosity. Compatible with standard protocols, but would require significant adjustment. Estimated integration timeline, 18 to 24 months. Sarth nodded. Expected results. And the secondary research? Initiated by subject on day 5, when Nathan Cole discovered my equipment and deduced its function. He threatened to report my presence unless I conducted additional research with his informed consent and full protocol knowledge. Critical moment. If Sarth believed the timeline, we had a chance. Why agree to those terms? Sarth asked Lyra. Because exposure would have compromised the entire mission. And because I was curious. No informed consent integration research exists for humans. The data would be scientifically valuable. Sarth turned to me. You threatened to expose first contact to force participation in experimental neural research. Remarkably courageous or remarkably foolish? Remarkably scientific. You can't assess true compatibility through covert manipulation. You need to know how humans respond when they understand what they're agreeing to. That's the only data that matters for long-term stability. Show me the informed consent results. Lyra displayed the second dataset. My neural patterns when I knew the interface was active. Conscious recognition of influence attempts. Ability to accept some suggestions while rejecting others. Detailed documentation of what integration felt like from inside when subjects understood what was happening. Subject exhibited dramatically different responses under informed conditions, Lyra explained. Conscious resistance reduced overall effectiveness 47%. However, subject demonstrated selective cooperation, accepting logical influences while rejecting those contrary to core values. This created hybrid consciousness, partially integrated but maintaining autonomous decision-making. That's not integration, a team member interjected. That's negotiation. Exactly, I said. And negotiation is more stable than coercion. You need allies, not subjugated populations. Allies negotiate, cooperate willingly because they understand mutual benefit. They don't rebel after 5 years because they never truly consented. Something flickered across Sarth's expression. You're referencing the Cora situation. I'm referencing basic political stability theory. Imposed systems fail. Chosen systems endure. If you want humanity as lasting gathering members, you need humans who choose integration with full knowledge. Otherwise, you're setting up the next Koros rebellion. Sarth studied the data silently. Finally, Agent Lyra, your official assessment remains valid. Earth is compatible with standard protocols. However, your secondary research raises questions about long-term stability that merit investigation. My heart pounded. This was it. Nathan Cole, your participation, while irregularly obtained, generated valuable comparative data. As compensation and in recognition of scientific contribution, I'm authorizing medical transport for Lucas Cole to Kryn Medical Station 7. Treatment timeline, immediate. My knees went weak. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Medical transport is contingent on continued cooperation with extended research protocol. We'll establish informed consent integration study on Earth. You'll serve as primary human liaison. Recruit additional subjects, explain protocols honestly, document responses. Minimum 2 years. I'll do it. You'll also submit to regular neural monitoring and maintain absolute confidentiality about gathering presence until official first contact is authorized. Understood. Sarth turned to Lyra. Agent Kaseneth, your protocol deviation is noted. However, your adaptability and willingness to pursue scientifically valuable research under irregular circumstances is commendable. You'll remain on Earth, overseeing the extended study, reporting directly to me. This is now a classified special project. Lyra's relief was visible. Yes, Executor. And Agent Kaseneth? The Koros situation was a tragedy that should have taught us important lessons. Perhaps it's time we actually learned them. Your research may help prevent future tragedies. After they left, I found myself in my herb garden at dawn with Lyra beside me. We'd done it. Committed scientific fraud, manipulated first contact, somehow convinced an alien executor to restructure integration research based on fabricated documentation. We lied to them, Lyra said quietly. The timeline was false. The science was real. We just moved truth earlier to protect you. That's still fraud. That's saving your career, Lucas's life, and potentially Earth's autonomy. I'll take the ethical compromise. She watched the sun rise over our herbs. Lucas's transport leaves in 6 hours. You should prepare. I'm not going with him. Kryn facilities don't allow family during neural reconstruction. It interferes with consciousness stabilization. You'd be saying goodbye for approximately 8 months. 8 months felt like forever and no time. Will it work? Kryn neural reconstruction has 94% success rate. But Nathan, Lucas won't be exactly the same. They'll restore core personality, memories, cognitive function, but some details will be different. He'll be Lucas, but not identical to the Lucas you remember. He'll be alive and awake. That's enough. Is it? You've grieved a specific person for 4 years. What if who comes back doesn't match your memory? Then I'll get to know him again. That's what parents do. We adapt to who our children become, not who we thought they'd be. The transport shuttle arrived at noon. 2 Kryn medical technicians emerged, crystalline rather than biological, geometric faces reflecting light prismatically. Nathan Cole, one said in a voice like wind chimes. We've reviewed Lucas Cole's records. Damage is extensive, but repairable. Estimated treatment, 6 to 8 months. Recovery, 2 to 4 months. Total timeline, 10 to 12 months. That's longer than indicated. We provide realistic estimates. Neural reconstruction is precise work. We don't rush. Will he remember me? Core relationship memories are deeply embedded and typically survive. He'll remember you as his father. Specific shared memories may be incomplete or altered. When can I see him? After initial stabilization, approximately 1 month. We'll establish communication so you can speak once he's conscious, but physical presence won't be possible until treatment completes. 1 month to hear his voice. 12 months until I could hold him. I'd already survived 4 years. I could survive 1 more. They departed with Lucas's medical data. I watched the shuttle disappear and felt something I hadn't felt in 4 years. Hope. You did it, Lyra said. Gambled everything and won. We did it. And we're not done. We have 2 years of research. Over the next month, we designed the study. Recruitment criteria, consent protocols, monitoring equipment, data methodology. The best work I'd done since university, maybe ever. And every night, I looked at stars and thought about Lucas, floating somewhere in darkness, being carefully reconstructed by crystalline aliens who took consciousness seriously. On day 32, I received first communication from Kryn Medical Station 7. The hologram showed Lucas in a recovery pod, eyes open and aware for the first time in 4 years. Dad? His voice was uncertain, testing the word. I'm here, Lucas, right here. They told me what happened. The accident. Mom, that I've been asleep 4 years. He looked at the camera, and I saw Emily in his expression, my stubbornness in his jaw. They told me you thought I was dead. I did. I'm so sorry. I should have checked, verified. Dad, stop. I don't remember the accident. Barely remember anything from before. But I remember you. I remember you always tried to fix things. That's what you're doing now, right? Yes, with help from unlikely allies. Aliens? Aliens? He laughed exactly like I remembered. That's so weird, Dad. Cosmically weird, but also kind of cool? Definitely weird and complicated. We'll have a lot to talk about when you're fully recovered. The doctors say I'll be different. That reconstruction can't make me exactly who I was. That's okay. I'm different too. We'll figure out who we are now together. I'd like that. The call lasted 20 minutes. Not enough time. Could never be enough, but it was real. My son was alive and awake and talking to me. Everything we'd risked was worth it for those 20 minutes. After the call, I found Lyra reviewing study protocols. "He's awake," I said simply. "I know." I monitored the channel. "He seems remarkably well adjusted. He's an adaptable kid. Always has been." I sat next to her. "Thank you for all of this. For Lucas, for the research, for taking the risk. You risked everything. I just documented. You risked your career, your standing, possibly your freedom. That's not just anything." She turned off displays. "Nathan, there's still significant chance this fails. That the gathering rejects methodology. Earth faces standard integration anyway. Everything we built doesn't matter." "I know. And you're okay with that possibility?" "I'm okay with having tried. With having said, there's a better way. Let us prove it. Win or lose. That's worth doing." She smiled, temple nodes pulsing contentment. "You're going to be an excellent liaison." We spent that evening planning our rebellion disguised as research. Above us, Lucas was healing. Beyond that, gathering leadership was reviewing our data, deciding Earth's fate. And here, in this isolated farm, we were building something new. Something that might change everything or nothing, but was worth attempting either way. "What happens if this works?" I asked as stars came out. "If we prove informed consent integration is viable, then you'll have helped create a new first contact model. One based on transparency, choice, genuine partnership. Future species won't face the coercive integration Earth nearly experienced. And if it doesn't work, then you'll have 12 months with your son before final decisions about Earth's status. 12 months to prepare him for whatever comes next. That's not much time. It's more time than you had yesterday." She was right. Everything was uncertain, provisional, could still collapse. But I had my son back, meaningful work, and an unlikely ally who'd chosen conscience over convenience. "Lyra, do you think we can actually pull this off?" Her nodes pulsed slowly, thoughtfully. "I think that's how all major changes start. Small studies asking uncomfortable questions. Data challenging accepted wisdom. Individuals refusing to accept the current way is the only way." She looked at stars. The gathering became 17 species through this exact process. Individuals proposing alternatives, backing them with evidence, convincing others to try something new. So we're continuing a tradition. We're starting a revolution. Quietly, with proper documentation and peer-reviewed methodology. I laughed. Most academic rebellion I've ever heard. Most human rebellion I've participated in. We stood in the herb garden under stars holding my recovering son and a civilization deciding humanity's fate, and I realized something fundamental had shifted. I'd spent 4 years cultivating plants as penance, trying to grow enough life to balance deaths I'd failed to prevent. But that wasn't how balance worked. You couldn't offset loss by hiding from connection. You could only move forward by choosing to engage, to risk, to build something new from wreckage. Lucas was coming home. Earth was facing first contact. I was part of conspiracy to rewrite alien integration protocols. Terrifying, overwhelming, impossible to predict. But for the first time in 4 years, I wasn't just surviving. I was living with purpose beyond penance. The purple fire that crossed my sky 32 days ago hadn't just brought an alien. It brought a choice disguised as catastrophe, opportunity hidden inside crisis. And I'd chosen to engage rather than retreat, to conspire rather than comply, to believe impossible situations contain space for better alternatives. Maybe that was what compatibility really meant. Not ability to be controlled, but capacity to choose partnership when given complete information. Maybe the gathering didn't need humans who could be seamlessly integrated. Maybe they needed humans who could say, "Let's negotiate terms that work for both of us." "Nathan," Lyra said quietly, "first test subject arrives tomorrow. Are you ready?" I looked at the garden we'd tended together, at alien technology in my barn, at stars holding my son and future. "No, but I'm willing." That's probably enough. For humans, willing is often better than ready. For anyone, readiness is overrated. Willingness is how things actually change. Tomorrow, we'd begin recruiting humans into experimental alien integration study. Next month, I'd talk to my son again. Next year, I'd hold him and introduce him to a universe far stranger than either of us imagined. The meteor that fell into my garden wasn't a meteor. It was a question disguised as fire, a test wrapped in catastrophe. A chance to prove first contact didn't have to mean conquest. It could mean partnership, if both sides met with honesty rather than manipulation. I still don't know if we'll succeed, if our research will change policy, if Earth will accept informed integration, if Lucas will fully recover, if any of this matters. But I know we're trying, building something better from something broken, choosing engagement over isolation. And sometimes that's enough. Sometimes willingness is the only currency that matters. The rest is just details, data, and hope that grows like herbs in carefully tended soil, slowly and steadily, until one day you look up and realize you've cultivated something worth protecting. The stars are full of fire tonight. Some falls like meteors, some stays fixed and distant, and some comes down to Earth and asks if you're willing to risk everything for possibility of something better. I placed my hand on soil, feeling life growing beneath. Tomorrow, we start changing the world. Tonight, I just tend my garden and wait for my son to come home. That's enough. For now, it's more than enough.